Hello everyone and welcome to our show. My name is Janara Iman and I'm a clinical nutritionist here in San Rafael. Had a practice for over 35 years and I've seen a lot of chronic conditions, and we were able to solve them with natural substances. So the name of our show is Chronic Ailments and Scientific Nutrition. We base this analysis on labs and natural substances to bring the body to its place where it can heal itself on its own. The combination of labs, nutrition, and supplements is a magic formula for nature and healing. And the name of our show, again, is the final episode of our immune system and leaky gut. It's very, very important that we all understand exactly what's going on with our gut. Far more than we realize, the gut-brain connection is almost the key to immune health and aging and longevity and prevention for disease. So we have here a Newsweek magazine article that states, due to research, the gut-brain connection is proven fact. Inflammation in the intestines directly disturbs the brain's neurotransmitters and hormonal regulation process. That's really important, ladies and gentlemen, because this is where your energy comes from. This is where your feel-good verve for life comes from. And when the body's hormonal system shuts down, you kind of feel fatigued and you shut down with it. And so up here I have a little picture of a cutout of a cellular membrane, and every cell in your body has one of these double lipid layers. And if they start to go wrong, or the wrong things get in and out of here, or this becomes brittle because your nutrition is wrong, or these openings are not letting what needs to be in and getting rid of toxins going out, then your health is directly affected by it. So you have to ask yourself, am I experiencing fuzzy thinking, irritability? Do I sleep well? Do I have stomach or gastric discomfort? Any of those things can begin to shut down the neuroendocrine system, and that's our hormones, and that's our ability to think, to function, to remember things, and our quality of life goes down with it when we don't have those things. So what makes it worse? Poor diet, chronic stress, viruses and bacteria, inflammation from those things, medications that we take for relief often make it worse, yeast and fungus exposure or infections, and we try to kill those often with medications, and then we create more gut problems, and poor digestion. All of these things are really, really important to keep health. And so how many Band-Aids can we put on it? We can keep Band-Aiding up this leaky gut until pretty soon there's nothing left to put a Band-Aid on, and then we start to have trouble. What happens is the body starts to break down. The foreign invaders enter the blood, and what happens with that is those foreign invaders are the good nutrition that you think you're eating. They get into the blood undigested. There's no protection for waste and toxins and yeast and other pathogens that start to accumulate, and the immune system gets up in arms and goes to battle. So then what happens is eventually the cascade increases and it can't keep up the fight any longer, and the older we get, the more this happens. So the majority of these foreign bodies absorb into your tissues, and then they cause inflammation, and that's when you don't feel good. You start to get aches and pains, your joints start to hurt, and the war begins, or the little battle continues on in the body because it's just doing its job. It wants to keep you at peak working, functioning condition. And so these little skirmishes that we were just talking about, like the liver filtering the blood properly, and your immune system calming inflamed tissues, and fighting bacteria and regulating the gut, begin to be ignored as the larger issues begin to be addressed. So when that happens, then again, you either enter a state of feeling like you have disease, or you never get well, or your medications aren't working, or anything that you're doing isn't right, and then it leads to brain fog. The hormonal cascade begins to go down. And often I hear people in my office say, I'm doing hormonal therapy, I'm taking my thyroid, I'm eating right, no matter what I do, I still don't feel well. And so now we see diseases come in like chronic fatigue, MS, IBS, ulcerative colitis, fibromyalgia, and the story begins. So our autoimmune and gut permeability is really, really important. And our focus is the elimination of all these root causes that start this syndrome. The misfiring, the attacking mode of a struggling immune system as it begins to take hold. According to Systemic Formulas biochemist Dr. Shane Morris and others, intestinal inflammation, dysbiosis, and leaky gut comprise a core disturbance that undermines even the best nutritional plans. So when I hear people come into my office and say, I eat so well, I'm on the right diet program, I've been tested for food allergies, I'm doing everything right, what is not going on? It's just a matter of simple figuring out what needs to be done and then giving the body the right things to heal itself. Simple, but complicated. So how do we get to the core of our symptoms? Well, first of all, any of these symptoms could be leading to what we're talking about or could be part of it. And weight gain and food cravings are also one of those things. And they set the inflammatory set point for the whole entire body. When you take an antibiotic over and over and over again and your gut has to reseed itself, there's often other little things that don't come back in the same ratio as they first started. Over a long period of time, some of these things can lead to a malnourishment, let's say, of things that you need. And so there's chemicals in there that say, eat more, eat more, eat more, because you're feeling deficient. That deficiency leads to this cascade of immune function that kind of goes awry. And so we call it epigenetics. You are born with a certain amount of DNA that makes up you. And it could be perfect or imperfect, but how you deal with that creates your healthy picture. And what you're exposed to is what your epigenetics are. Cases are well known of studies of twins, one who had a happy, healthy life living in the country or in a nice place, and another twin who went off to a very stressful life in a big city and had a lot of problems. And that twin's DNA no longer looks exactly identical like it did at birth. The weaknesses have evolved into a disease, and certain markers were set so that maybe cancer or heart disease or gut reactions or hormonal issues start to take hold and bring the body down. So we are what we are at birth. We're given a set of DNA and we can work with that, but our epigenetics are what we expose ourselves to, and daily stress is part of that. So our epigenetic expression of disease determines our health and our immune defenses, and the bottom line is immune defense. So that's what we're talking about. The thyroid gland has a direct relationship to the ability of our cells to generate and release ATP for cellular energy and metabolic function. And when these things begin to go down, everybody experiences low thyroid function. And that could be for a lot of reasons, but number one is it all affects the thyroid eventually and the adrenal glands. So we have a hormonal cascade that ends up happening. And so people with adrenal fatigue and low adrenal function often suffer from low blood sugar and lightheadedness, and they crave sugar and they feel weak. And it all connects to what we were talking about. Many feel anxiety attacks, fears increase, they worry, depression can set in, confusion, mental confusion, difficulty concentrating, retaining information, memory begins to go, stamina to think things through. A person become overwhelmed, have less tolerant, and are easily frustrated. And so we have our little gal here at work again. And much of the stress that we see nowadays is work-related stress, especially in this day and age. So we combine that with what happens in the gut and the diet, and we begin to see why we start feeling problems. And we have problems that we have to start addressing on a health level. So the tools and the methods of nutritional analysis support the immune system because we want to work from a preventive point of view. We already start out, like I said, from birth with a certain set of issues. And they could be really perfect, and they could be exactly what you've inherited, like a disease from your parents or an immune deficiency. And so we also have the combination of epigenetics, where toxins and chemicals and pathogens come in and out, and some of these can cross the blood-brain barrier. And so here we see the skull, and we see, the blood going into the brain cells. And if that is permeated by these toxins, then our brain is definitely affected. And there has been clinical studies that we have seen where the baby, the placenta of the baby is affected by what the mother is eating. In clinical trials, this has been proven, and it's also been proven that the amount of mercury in the mother's body and the amount of lead is also the exact amount in the baby's brain. So if we don't deal with these things, and we can deal with them naturally, and we know how to do it, it's a matter of doing it and coming up with the right solutions, this becomes a degenerative process in which we want to avoid. So chemicals in foods and the environment have been found to be in the placenta of the unborn children that create a predisposition to disease. And so we want to work with our kids too. We want to help our kids be healthy. We always think of them as being lively and strong and having amazing immune systems, but we have something called commercials and TV now, and peer pressure, and toxic load starts with these youth as consumers. So what happens in the gut and the brain and that connection is we have kids who according to clinical studies, in their first 24 months of life, the first 2 years of their life, the first thing they ask for, according to this clinical trial by Story and French in 2004, 47% sugared breakfast cereals, things like this, the things they see connected with the toys and their cartoons. And second of all is snacks and beverages. And toys is only 21 now. When I was a kid, I wanted all the toys. When up at the grocery store aisle, that's what you saw. You saw toys. But now you see everything is sugar. So these kids are so exposed to this kind of thinking that that's what they want. And then the more you have, the more you want. And then the chemical toxic base and the food colorings and the amount of sugar in all this food sets off this propensity to not have the healthiest gut that we can have. And then when we get sick, and then we alter it again with medications, and we don't give the body what it needs to heal itself afterwards, we're increasing this cascade. So this according to Cedar and Grass, in 2004, a total of $7.5 billion was spent on some form of targeting advertising to kids. That's pretty scary. And some of those kids are you, now grown up, and me too. So we end up as adults with not the same set of immune function or the immune system that maybe our grandparents had. And so what happens is this gets into our life and it gets into our way, and this creates further stress in our body. And you might be worried about taking that romantic vacation somewhere off or two, or having that romantic dinner with your loved one, because you don't know how you're going to feel afterwards. Even if you know what you're sensitive to and you know what you're not supposed to eat, and you've been working with this, sometimes you just don't know when it's going to hit. And so that gets scary. And the real core way to heal this is to get to the root cause and go back and fix the gut. You can be thinking about a romantic evening at home. Same thing happens. What are you going to eat? All of a sudden, you don't know how many times you're going to be running to the bathroom. And gastrointestinal stress can really, really take away our quality of life. And so in this country, we have an ongoing anti-acid problem, and it's millions of dollars of sales, millions. So what happens here is, why can't we get well? Well, down here is a picture of what happens in leaky gut, and up here is is an actual photograph of a healthy intestinal lining, and you see all this healthy little villi here. And they absorb food, and they protect you. Over here, you have a damaged intestinal lining where you see all this healthy villi has been run down by what we feed it. A lot of it, much of it, is gluten and certain grains, and then other processed foods that get into our blood. Why? Because this is the intestinal lining, and we have these junctions. And when this little white space here and here is what happens when these tight junctions no longer are tight. Things get in here and they get into the blood undigested. So that's what happens when we were talking about those undigested food particles and molecules that get in there. So this is a little cutout close-up of that. In a healthy human digestive tract, these cells are very, very tight. They're called tight junctions. That's exactly what they're called. They're enterocyte cells, and they act as a barrier which allows only properly digested foods, fats like proteins and starches, to pass through and enter the bloodstream. And so that also the toxins and other things that get in there have a fighting chance to pass through the liver and get filtered out. So another close-up here is what happens when those cells can't keep those particles from going into the blood, and so that's called leaky gut. And it leads to many, many things: autoimmune situations, inflammation, GERD, colitis. All of these things could be traced back to a leaky gut because of the inflammation process. And the other thing is that you're not getting the nutrition you need because you're not able to digest it in a form where your cells and your body can accept it. And a lot of studies have been done on this, and one of the things that they found through testing is that this little chemical called zonulin is present much more in people with leaky gut. So testing for this is easy. We can test for this, and we can fix this. Therefore, we can begin to avoid some of these things that happen. There was another survey that was done, and it was a 2-week survey, and everybody in that survey had a questionnaire that they filled out, and 10 to 20% of them said that they had an antacid of some kind within the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, we know why these things are great sellers, and heartburn and stomach inflammation is so uncomfortable that you want to do something immediately, yet it's the wrong thing to do, because it really is trying to tell you that the body needs something. Something's not working right. And so getting rid of that acid is great, but what happens is now you're really not digesting your food, and it's creating a cascade of more undigested food getting into the body, and this creates food allergies and sensitivities and autoimmune things on their own. So your stomach acid is very, very important, and acid-blocking medications will kill stomach acid, which is necessary to kill any foodborne bacteria, parasites, fungus, and candida. And, interestingly enough, the reason why dogs can eat out of a garbage can and we cannot without getting sick is because their stomachs have 4% more hydrochloric acid than ours do. And, I mean, it's 4 to 1. So that's pretty big, and when we stop that acid that we have as our protection against these things, then we're setting up ourselves for all kinds of dysfunction and possibly disease. So you need to stop taking your acid blocking medications and abstain from foods that causes acid reflux. But okay, now what do you do? Because you still have it and you still feel like you need to medicate. So that's what we want to do, is we want to talk to you about, learn what to do. There is real solid answers, and testing can give us the right answers and show you which way to go with that. So the other question is, are you gluten-free and you still feel sick? I see this in my office all the time. Patients come in, and they're feeling like nothing's really helping. The immediate gluten or celiac symptoms have begun to subside and they're not as bloated, but their energy is gone. They're fatigued. They don't quite have their life back yet. And, you know, many of them are saying to me, I'm so careful about what I eat. I don't hardly eat anything, you know, that could even be remotely considered, you know, gluten. I don't take medications with gluten in them. I don't do anything, and yet I'm still feeling terrible. Why? Because of that whole situation that we just showed you. It sets up, you know, a situation in the intestines that makes it really hard to heal unless you go at it directly. So pretty soon all the foods you eat begin to add stress, and we just said how stress will increase the problem. And your first reaction that the body has to these foreign bodies in your blood is to fight. They want to fight them. You know, that's the immune system wants to attack. So depending on your own personal genetics and epigenetics, your body gives into inflammation and disease, and we want to be able to get that at a cellular level. This is a comparative test, and this is done in the office. And what happens when, you know, you can take a really good diet, and if you have these conditions, the amount of amino acids you're actually going to absorb and get from this diet is down to 25% in this person. After treatment and after working with this person, doing it again, we see now almost 100% absorption of the amino acids and the proteins and the things that the body needs to heal itself. So this is important. It's important to know what to do. And these were the essentials from the diet that's broken down by this computer analysis that we use to do some of that. And I don't have time or the space in this to show you all the tests, but basically it's simple to do, it's easy, and it works. So restore proper function and autoimmunity is important, and there's almost no way of knowing what oxidative stress and inflammation you're headed towards unless you can test. And testing is really important for prevention. So comprehensive lab work is important to tell you what nutrients you need, and you're different than your neighbor, your spouse, your child, and you know, your friends. And so specifically what we want to do is give you the things that you need that are personal for your condition, and then give you the core healing program to get your gut back in shape. So you got to get up to the minute healthcare information. And if your practitioner, you know, doesn't have this, then, you know, I'd be happy to talk to you. There's seminars that they can attend as well. So tools and methods of nutritional analysis are really, really important. When you come into my office, you get a comprehensive nutritional health intake, you get a diet and nutritional analysis, individual nutritional programs based on those, like we just saw. But more importantly, you get a comprehensive lab analysis, and that's blood, hair, and urine, and your toxic load, which tells us where to start. So true cellular detox is based on labs, and my patients receive an individualized comprehensive nutritional program based on that. And, you know, without prevention and without this kind of knowledge, we can't get the results we want. And most physicians won't test you unless you have raving symptoms that, you know, can really fit a diagnostic code. So the benefits of seeing a nutritional specialist, a clinical nutritionist, is to address all these deep issues, including diabetes and hormonal dysfunction. This kind of lab testing is important because our results are based on healthy ranges of healthy people. Most lab tests show functional highs and functional lows, and the averages go down every year because they're based on averages, and they're based on averages of people that actually go get blood work that don't feel good. So the benefits of this kind of blood testing is we get 52 different tests. We get a holistic biomedical picture of you. And here's a comparison of two tests. This was the first one. You see a lot of red, which are warnings. Blue is serious, and yellow is caution. We have to deal with those things. And 6 months later, on a natural healing program, you can see most of the red is gone, and all of the blue is gone, and this person's more in the healthy white area of the test. So we know this really works. We have documentation, and this is a sample of what your hair analysis looks like. And up in here, we can see what kinds of things are causing you problems. We can see if there's mercury, lead, or this person has a few things that are in the past the healthy zone. But more important, this person has a lot of things that show mineral deficiencies, and that's really important to your health, very important to know. And hair analysis works because every hair follicle is attached to a blood artery, and everything that the body eliminates comes through and into the hair follicle, and so it's a very easy way to test. We do a complete urine analysis to see what the body's casting off, and we do a test called metaoxy as part of that, and that tests urine malinaldehyde, and that shows us how much free radical damage that you're being exposed to, because you want to know if your antioxidants are working and which ones you really, really need. So clearly, the early warning signs of inflammation and disease can be prevented. And the gut is a key. And once again, the gut is a key to how your brain functions, how you feel, how your hormones are functioning. So your comprehensive lab work can tell you if your receptor sites are no longer communicating or receiving before disease becomes apparent. And it can tell us whether you have a hormone or an autoimmune problem and what to do about it. And your lab work can also tell us if you have a toxicity problem that blocks your hormones and your receptor sites. So these are things that we can do in our office very easily. And I'm Janari Iman. My website is vitalnaturalhealthsolutions.com. If you go to my website, you can see places where you can find more information on this, and if you're a healthcare practitioner, how you could find that out too. I want to give special thanks to the crew of this show, and very special thanks to the Community Media Center of Marin for making this show possible and allowing us the use of their facilities. Thank you very much. May you be in good health.